How did one stupid joke at a bar end with my husband handing me legal papers in front of my whole family? Why does everyone say I cheated when I never even took my ring off? What if sitting on a stranger's lap as a joke becomes the proof that costs you your marriage and your home? Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Isolde, and I know people already decided I am the villain. That is what happens when everyone only hears one side, or when they see a 10-second video and think it shows a whole marriage. No one ever asks what it is like to feel invisible in your own home, or what it does to you when you are only a mother and never a woman. That Friday started like every other boring day. I sat at my desk in the open plan office, staring at numbers on a screen. Payroll issues, overtime sheets, emails from managers who did not even know my name. I thought how strange it was that they trusted me with everyone's pay, but never with anything fun or important. Lena rolled her chair over and asked what my plans were for the weekend. I said I had nothing, just dishes and cartoons with my daughter, and another quiet night with Ethan. She made a face and said that sounded depressing. She told me she wanted a girls' night at the Juniper Room because it was ladies' night and there would be free drinks. She said I should ask Ethan to watch Mara because I deserved to feel sexy and alive again. I laughed and said Ethan would probably complain about money or bedtimes. She told me men always do that when they feel their wives slipping away. On my way home, I already knew I would go out. I told myself I needed it. The train ride felt like a cage. When I walked into our apartment, Ethan was making pasta while Mara colored at the table. It should have been sweet, but I only saw how tired he looked, in his same old t-shirt, how small my life felt. He asked how my day was, and I told him it was long and boring. I said Lena wanted to go out and that I might go with her. He asked what time and who would watch Mara. I said he would, of course, because he was her father. He asked if we could have a quiet night instead, since money was tight and he had an early start. I said he was trying to keep me locked up and that I was not his prisoner. He tried to explain that he just wanted a plan and that he was tired. I said I was tired too, tired of feeling like a roommate. I told him if he could not handle one night out, then something was wrong with him, not with me. He went quiet and stirred the pasta. I hated that silence more than any shout. It made me feel like the bad one, even when I knew I was right. After dinner, I put on makeup in the bathroom. I chose a short black dress I had not worn since before I had Mara. Ethan watched from the doorway and asked if that was not a bit much for a small bar. I told him he should be happy that other men might look at me, because it meant he had something valuable. He said he only wanted me to be safe and to remember I was a mother. I told him being a mother did not mean I had to look like one. Lena picked me up in a rideshare. In the car, she asked if Ethan had given me trouble. I told her he had tried to guilt me and make it all about him. She said he was boring and that this was why young women do not want to get married. I laughed and agreed, even though a part of me knew it was cruel. The Juniper Room was loud and bright, filled with people who did not know me as anyone's wife. The music shook the floor. Lena ordered shots, and I told myself I would only have one. Then there was another, and another. A tall guy behind the bar smiled and called us trouble. Lena told me his name was Kai, and that he sometimes DJ'd on weekends. He slid us extra drink tickets and asked if we were celebrating something. I told him I was celebrating freedom from my boring husband for one night. He asked if I was married, in a playful way. I said something like I was not married tonight and that I was basically single. I thought it was obvious that I was joking. The girls laughed. It felt good to hear them laugh with me, not at me. Later, Lena dared me to sit on Kai's lap while she filmed a video for her stories. She said it would wake Ethan up and make him realize what he had. I hesitated for a second, but then I thought of Ethan's tired face and the way he had tried to talk me out of coming. I thought that if he never felt jealous, he did not love me enough. So I stepped over and sat on Kai's lap while he raised his eyebrows. I threw my head back and joked that I was not married, that I was free tonight. The camera light was on us, everyone around us cheering. In my head, it was just a scene from a movie. Nothing real. Kai put his arm lightly around my waist. I told myself it was just for balance, just for the photo. I felt alive and wanted, not like the woman who answers school emails and loads the dishwasher. My phone buzzed in my hand. Ethan asked what time I would be home and if everything was okay. I rolled my eyes and showed the message to Lena. She said he was obsessed and controlling, and that I should ignore him. I replied that I was fine, and that I would be home later. He asked what later meant. I sent a smiley and put the phone face down on the sticky table. Hours passed. We danced. We shouted jokes over the music. I saw someone holding up a phone, recording when Lena pushed Kai and me together again. I thought it was funny. Nobody said the word cheating. It was all just play in my mind. When Lena finally called a car, it was late. The streets were quiet and dark. My feet hurt, but I felt light, like I had proved something to myself. In the car, Lena asked what Ethan would say. I answered that he would sulk and then get over it. She told me to stand firm and not let him twist it. I opened the apartment door as quietly as I could, but the hinge squeaked. The living room light was off, only a soft glow from the kitchen. I saw Ethan on the couch, awake, staring at the ceiling. He turned his head toward me, tired eyes clear. He asked what time it was. I said the time was not important, and that he was being dramatic. That was when I saw it. My big suitcase, the one I used for trips, was standing by the front door. It was zipped up, the handle extended, like it was waiting. On top of it lay my folded denim jacket and a small bag with my makeup. For a moment I thought there was some mistake. I asked him what this was supposed to be. I told him if he was trying to scare me, it would not work. He said in a very calm voice that he had packed my things while I was out, and that we would talk in the morning when I was sober. He said he did not want to argue in front of our sleeping daughter. Then he turned his face back to the ceiling and closed his eyes, as if I were not even there. In the morning, my head hurt and my mouth was dry. For a second, I forgot about the suitcase. Then I walked out of the bedroom and saw it still standing by the door, neat and ready, like a silent threat. Ethan was in the kitchen making pancakes for Mara. He was dressed, hair combed, eyes tired. Mara ran to me and hugged my leg. She said I smelled like the bar. I laughed it off and told her Mommy had fun last night. Ethan did not say good morning. He just asked if I wanted coffee. His voice was polite, not warm. I hated it. I asked if he was really serious about the suitcase. He said he had packed some of my things so that if I wanted to go, I could, and he would not stop me. He said he did not want to live with someone who made jokes about being single in other men's laps. The way he said it made it sound much worse than it was. I told him he was twisting what happened. I said it was just a stupid joke, and everyone knew it. I said Lena filmed for 3 seconds and that was all. He looked at me and asked if I remembered saying I was not married. I said I did not say that, or if I did, it was clearly sarcasm. I told him he needed to lighten up. He did not raise his voice. He said he did not find it funny to hear his wife say she was not married. He said he felt humiliated, even if it was only in front of my friends. I rolled my eyes and said it only mattered if he made it a big deal. I told him no one cared as much as he did. While Mara watched cartoons, I sat at the kitchen table and scrolled through my phone. Lena had posted a short clip of me at the bar. In the video, I was laughing, hair wild, sitting on Kai's lap, while someone shouted in the background. You could not hear every word clearly over the music. I decided that was proof it was not that bad. I showed the clip to Ethan and said, "See, you can't even hear anything, it's nothing." He watched with that blank face of his, then handed the phone back and said it was enough. I told him he was being dramatic, and that real cheating looked very different. He said nothing. My mother, Dara, had invited us to brunch. I decided we should still go. I wanted normal, and I also wanted people to hear my version. If others agreed with me, maybe Ethan would see he was wrong. I told him we should not cancel because of one little misunderstanding. He hesitated, then said fine. He always cared about appearing stable in front of family. He went to change, and I noticed a folder on the counter by his laptop. It was labeled household in his neat writing. It was full of papers, bills, bank printouts, our lease. I asked what that was for. He said he was organizing our finances. He said it calmly, but I felt an edge. On the wall calendar, I saw a new note written in blue pen. Downtown 10:40 a.m., personal, on Tuesday. I poked at it and asked if he was seeing a therapist or something. He said it was personal, and he would tell me if he wanted to. I joked that maybe he was going to see a lawyer. He did not laugh. At my mother's townhouse, the smell of food filled the air. Tara was already there, pouring juice, and Mark, Ethan's brother, sat at the table with his coffee. Everyone said hello, like everything was normal. I smiled wide and acted relaxed. Ethan stayed quiet. During brunch, Dara asked how our week had been. I decided that was my moment. I told her we had a little situation because Ethan had packed my suitcase last night, like some melodramatic movie character. I said he was punishing me for going out with friends. Everyone looked at him. He cut his pancake and stayed silent. I told them the story, but my version. I said we were at the Juniper Room, that Lena had filmed a tiny joke with the bartender, and Ethan had gone crazy over it. I said I barely touched the man, and Ethan was acting like I ran away with him. Tara asked what kind of joke. I said I sat on his lap for a second because Lena dared me, and that was all. I smiled like it was silly. Dara laughed and said men were too sensitive these days. She told Ethan he should be proud people found his wife attractive. Mark raised his eyebrows and asked if there was more to it. Ethan finally spoke. He said he did not want to talk about it there. I told him that hiding it made him look worse. I said I did not want secrets in the family. I kept talking over him, explaining how I work hard, how I'm a good mother, how I needed one night to remember I am still young. I said any secure man would understand that. Tara looked unsure. She asked if I had really said I was not married. I said no, or maybe I had said something like, I'm not married tonight, but as a joke. I waved my hand and said everyone jokes like that. Dara nodded and said, of course, that it is just flirting, nothing serious. Mark looked straight at me and asked if I would be fine with Ethan sitting on some woman's lap in a bar and saying he was single. I laughed and said Ethan would never have the chance. That was an answer, but not really. Mark said in his book that was cheating. He looked at Ethan and said he would not live with that. I got angry then. I said it was none of Mark's business. I told him he had no idea what it was like to be in a body that carried a child, to feel invisible and tired all the time, and to finally feel attention again. I said everyone wanted me to be grateful and quiet. Dara put her hand on my arm and told me I deserved to feel alive. Ethan did not fight back. He just said that he did not want his private life turned into a joke for everyone's entertainment. He said he felt disrespected. I said, respect follows results, and I had results. I kept our child fed, our house running, and I still looked good. That line sounded strong in my head. After brunch, in the car, Ethan drove in silence. I told him he had just made things worse by sulking and letting my family think he was the bad guy. He said he had not said anything bad about me. He said he was tired of arguing and just wanted facts. That word facts annoyed me. I told him feelings mattered more than facts. Back at the apartment, he went straight to the table and opened the household folder. He pulled our phone bill, bank statements, and daycare invoices into neat piles. The laptop screen showed a spreadsheet with columns I did not understand. I asked what he was doing. He said he was making sure everything was clear and in order. I told him it felt like he was preparing for war. He said he was just making sure that if my actions had consequences, we would both see them clearly. I said he was threatening me. He said he was not, that he was simply organizing what already existed. It sounded like something a lawyer would say, and I hated that I did not know exactly what he meant. On Monday, I pretended everything was normal. That is what you do when you refuse to let one weekend define you. At the office, I told Lena it had all blown over. I said Ethan had his little moment with the suitcase and spreadsheets, but he would calm down. She asked if he had apologized yet. I said not yet, but he would, because the problem was his insecurity, not my behavior. Lena leaned over her desk and said she wanted to do something fun for her birthday on Friday. She talked about a rooftop bar near downtown, with a view of the whole city. She said she wanted everyone there, couples and singles, and she made a point of saying that I had to come even if Ethan wanted another quiet night. I said I would come, of course. I told her I would not let my husband's mood swings control my week. At lunch, I checked my phone and saw a new message request on social media. It was from Kai, the bartender from the Juniper Room. He sent a laughing emoji about the video and asked if my husband was still mad about the chair joke. I liked that. To him, I was not a bad wife. I was someone fun. I wrote back and said my husband was being dramatic about nothing. Kai replied that some men could not handle a confident woman. I let that sit in my chest like a warm stone. When I got home that evening, Ethan was helping Mara with homework at the table. He asked how my day was. I said it was fine and that Lena was planning something big for her birthday. I said it was on Friday at a rooftop bar, and that of course I was going. He asked who would watch Mara. I told him he would, again, because that was what fathers did. He asked what time I would be home. I said I did not know, that it was a party, not a job shift. He said he would rather we all did something small together, maybe a movie night. I said I did not want to sit in the dark with a man who thought I was a criminal for enjoying myself. He went quiet again. He said only that he did not want the same thing to happen as last time. I thought he meant the bar, but I realized later he also meant the feeling of being laughed at by my family. During the week, I kept messaging with Kai. It was harmless in my mind, just some flirting to remind me I had options. I told him my husband was barely even a husband lately, that he spent more time with spreadsheets than with me. He replied that I deserved better and that if I wanted a night where I felt single, I knew where to find him. I told myself it was just words. Words are not cheating, I thought. Only actions count. On Thursday night, I walked past the fridge and saw the wall calendar again. The note, downtown 10:40 a.m., personal, was still there, now with a small checkmark next to it. A new recurring note had appeared on Fridays at 4. Meeting, personal. I asked what all these personal meetings were. He said they were for him to talk things through and get advice. He did not say from who. I laughed and said if he needed a whole series of meetings to understand a joke, he was worse than I thought. Friday came and I dressed for Lena's birthday. I chose a tight red dress this time, something everyone would notice. Ethan watched me from the doorway while I fixed my hair. He said he hoped I would make good choices, for Mara's sake. I said the only bad choice was marrying a man who could not handle attention. I told him men hit on me because I was desirable, and that he should thank me for keeping myself that way. He said I was twisting things. I told him he liked me better when I was insecure. At school pickup, Helen met me by the gate because Ethan had asked her to help. She asked if things were okay between us. I said Ethan was overreacting, but that we were fine. Mara tugged on her hand and said Daddy was sad. I did not like that. I told Mara Daddy was just tired from work. Helen gave me a look I could not read. That night on the rooftop, the city lights spread out like a carpet. Music played, not as loud as at the Juniper Room, but enough to feel like a movie. Lena hugged me and said I looked amazing. She asked if Ethan had tried to stop me again. I said he had tried with guilt about Mara, and she rolled her eyes. She said he sounded like a manipulator. I liked that someone finally used that word about him instead of me. Kai was there, of course. Lena had invited him on purpose. He came over with drinks and said it was good to see me away from my angry husband. I said my husband was not angry, just sensitive. I told Kai that Ethan refused to come because he thought I would embarrass him again. Kai laughed and said Ethan should be proud his wife was the hottest person at the party. I pretended to be annoyed, but I felt a glow. We took pictures by the railing. Kai stood close behind me, one arm lightly around my waist. I told myself it looked more dramatic on camera than it really was. I checked my phone and saw a text from Ethan asking how late I planned to stay, and reminding me that Mara had a soccer practice early the next morning. I showed the message to Lena, who groaned that he had dad energy even on birthdays. Our group laughed. Someone said I should just leave him if he was going to act like that. I said he acted like my father, not my partner. I replied to Ethan that I would be home later, and he asked again what later meant. I did not answer. Instead, I posted a story of the group, with Kai in the background, and wrote a caption about finally feeling alive. I knew Ethan might see it, and maybe I wanted that. If he felt a little jealous, maybe he would start fighting for me, I thought. That was my logic. The night stretched on. Drinks blurred the edges of the rooftop. At one point, Lena asked if Kai and I were a thing now. I laughed and said I was married on paper, but that it did not feel like it. She said that meant I was basically single in my heart. I repeated that line later in a message to Kai. He sent a fire emoji. I knew how that sounded, but I told myself it was just fun, not real. When I finally got into a rideshare, it was close to 1 a.m. The driver's radio was low. My phone battery blinked red. I thought briefly about Ethan's texts, but decided I would deal with him in the morning when he had slept and I had proof that people wanted me. In my mind, that proof was important. It meant I was not crazy. He was. The building hallway was quiet when I came in. The elevator felt too bright. Our apartment door opened to darkness, only a thin strip of light under the guest room door. I expected Ethan to be on the couch again, ready to lecture me. The living room was empty. The kitchen table held only his closed laptop, and the household folder stacked neatly beside it. As I moved toward the bedroom, I heard a low voice from the guest room. The door was slightly open. I saw Ethan sitting on the edge of the bed with his laptop open, the blue screen glow on his face. There was another voice coming from the speakers, a man's voice, calm and professional. At the top of the video window, there was a name I could make out. Something like Holden. Papers were spread around Ethan, lined up in order with small sticky notes. He said to the man that he had the screenshots, the dates, the bank records, and the notes on childcare. He said he wanted to protect Mara and make sure everything was fair. He did not sound angry, only tired and sure. The other voice said something about next steps and options. It felt like I had walked into a meeting where I was the topic but not invited. I pushed the door a little, and Ethan looked up just for a second. He met my eyes, then closed the laptop and ended the call without a word. Ethan closed the laptop, and the room went dark, except for the hallway light behind me. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I asked who he was talking to. He said it was someone helping him understand things. I told him if he meant a lawyer, he should at least have the courage to say the word. He replied that I did not like facts, so the name did not matter. That stung. I said he was making me into an enemy. I reminded him I was his wife, not some stranger he had to build a case against. He said I was the one acting like a stranger, sitting on other men and telling them I was basically single. He used that phrase back at me. I said he was twisting messages and jokes into something ugly. I wanted him to shout, but he did not. He said he was done shouting and begging. He said that if I wanted to live like I was single, he would treat me like someone he was no longer tied to. There was something cold in that sentence. I told him he was being abusive, trying to scare me with evidence instead of actually listening. He said he had listened for years, actually. He said he had listened when I made fun of his clothes, his job, and his body in front of friends. He said the difference now was he finally decided to write things down instead of letting them pass. I told him nobody writes things down in a real marriage, that it was sick. He said, very quietly, that maybe we did not have a real marriage anymore. The next afternoon at school pickup, I saw Helen standing near the gate with Mara. She held Mara's backpack and smiled when she saw me, but her eyes were serious. Mara ran over and hugged me, then clung to my leg. She said Daddy was going to Grandma's house later. I felt a flare of irritation. I asked Helen if they had made plans without telling me. Helen said Ethan had asked her to help with Mara that evening, so we could talk like adults. The way she repeated his words made me feel like I was the one who was not adult. She asked gently if things were okay between us. I said we were just having a rough patch and that Ethan was being dramatic. I said he was collecting proof, like a detective, instead of forgiving his own wife. Helen did not rush to my side the way I expected. She said Ethan was very hurt and that what happened at the bar went against everything he believed in. I said it was a joke, that nobody there took it seriously. She asked if I could see how sitting on another man's lap and saying I was not married might feel serious to a husband, no matter who was watching. I answered that maybe he should grow up and realize women need attention too. Mara tugged on my hand and said, Daddy was sad a lot lately. She said he did not play as many games. That annoyed me even more because it made me sound like the cause. I told Mara Daddy was just busy and tired. I told Helen that Ethan was using sadness to avoid being a real partner, that he would rather feel sorry for himself than fix things. Later that week, Helen invited us to her house to talk. When Ethan told me, I thought it was my chance to finally make everyone see how unreasonable he was being. I pictured myself explaining, with tears if needed, how trapped and unseen I felt. I imagined Helen taking my side, telling Ethan to let go of his pride. Her living room was warm, with family photos on the walls. Mara played quietly in the corner with some old toys. Ethan sat on the armchair opposite me, while Helen took the couch between us, like some judge. She offered tea. I accepted, mostly to look calm. Helen started by saying she loved both of us and wanted what was best for Mara. Then she asked Ethan to explain what he was feeling. I expected him to say something vague about being hurt and leave it there, like he usually did. Instead, he spoke slowly and clearly, as if he had rehearsed. He described the night at the Juniper Room, how he saw the video of me on Kai's lap, how he heard enough to know I was joking about being single, how he watched my friends laugh. He told Helen he had received the clip from Mark, who saw it through someone else's story. That detail stung. It meant my little joke had traveled more than I thought. He mentioned other things too. The late nights, the posts about finally feeling alive, the way I mocked him in front of my family. He did not shout or exaggerate. He just listed them with dates. The calmness made it all sound worse, like a report, not a fight. I cut in, saying he was making a list like I was some criminal. I said everyone joked like that now, that social media was not real life. I said, if he felt humiliated, that was his choice, not my fault. I reminded Helen I was the one who carried Mara, the one who took her to doctors, the one who kept things going. Ethan did not argue about that. He simply said he did not want Mara to grow up thinking this was how love looked. Helen asked me directly if I understood why Ethan felt betrayed. I said I understood he felt that way, but that feelings were not facts. I said the fact was I never slept with anyone, so it was not cheating. I repeated that word, facts, like I was mocking him. Helen's face tightened. Mark arrived during the conversation, having been invited by Ethan. That felt unfair to me. I did not know it was going to be a whole panel. He greeted us, and then leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. Helen asked him to keep things calm. He nodded, but I could see he had already chosen a side. When they asked me to tell my version, I made sure to start with how lonely I had felt, how Ethan had stopped touching me, how I had become just Mom and not Isolde. I talked about my body after birth, my boring job, my need to feel attractive again. I said the bar night was the first time in ages I felt seen. I also carefully changed some details. I said I only sat on Kai's lap for a second, that you could not even hear my words over the music. I said Lena exaggerated when she told people I said I was not married. I did not mention the messages to Kai, where I told him I felt basically single. Those were just silly texts in my mind, and not part of the real story. Mark asked if I would be okay if Ethan did the same thing. He asked if I would laugh it off if a video came out of Ethan on some woman's lap, telling people he was single. I answered with another question. I asked if he thought Ethan could even get a woman to sit with him like that. It was a cheap shot, and I knew it. Mark's jaw clenched. Helen spoke slowly and said she was worried about Mara. She said Mara had told her that Mommy was always going out now. I protested and said that was not true, that I only went out a little more than before. Ethan quietly listed the recent nights I had been out, naming dates, school days after. I said he was keeping score, like a petty person. After we left Helen's house, the car was heavy with silence. I told Ethan he had humiliated me in front of his mother and brother by making our private problems sound like a case file. I said he was emotionally abusive, using terms like pattern and frequency instead of just admitting he was jealous. He said jealousy was not the issue. He said respect was. He said again that he was going to focus on what he could control, his own choices, his own responsibilities to Mara. He said he could not control me, and he did not want to. I should have been glad to hear that, but I was not. It sounded like him letting go. That night in our apartment, after Mara was asleep, I went into the kitchen for water. Ethan stood by the counter, sliding a small USB stick back under a folder labeled Taxes in the high cabinet. The cupboard door clicked shut. I smelled toner from the other room. The printer had just spat out a blank page, which lay on the tray like some kind of joke. I asked why he suddenly cared so much about paperwork, why every night now had some new file, some new list. He said he had realized memories fade, and people tell different stories, but documents stay the same. I told him that sounded like something a lawyer would put on a mug. He did not laugh. On the fridge calendar, a new recurring note had appeared. Meeting, personal, Fry, 4 p.m. I pointed at it and asked who he was meeting every Friday. He said it was someone helping him get things in order. I said he was threatening me. He said he was protecting himself and Mara. I called him paranoid. He did not rise to my insults. He just washed his cup, dried it, and placed it in the rack. Then he looked at me and said softly that I should remember one thing. Actions have consequences, even if I keep telling myself they are only jokes. I said his obsession with consequences would ruin us faster than any joke. He just nodded, as if I had proved his point for him. I woke up the next day sure he would calm down. People say things at night they do not really mean. Morning light makes them softer. I went into the kitchen expecting to see him hunched over more papers, but he was dressed and ready for work, standing by the counter with his keys in his hand. His face was calm, too calm. He said he had booked us an appointment with a couples counselor for the following week. Just like that, as if I had no say. I laughed and asked if he thought a stranger with a notepad could fix his jealousy. He said he was not doing it to fix jealousy. He was doing it to see if anything could be saved. I told him we were fine, that he was the only one who seemed to think we were in crisis. He gave me a look that said he did not believe that for a second. Over the next days, he stuck to that calm tone that made me crazy. He did not engage when I pushed his buttons. When I made jokes about him dating his spreadsheets, he just said he had a lot to think about. When I hinted about going out again, he said nothing, just wrote in his little notebook he kept now by the bedside. I called it his sad diary under my breath. He heard me and did not react. The counseling session was in a small room on the second floor of a low building near downtown. There were plants in every corner and tissues on a side table, like they expected people to fall apart. Ethan sat straight in his chair, hands folded. I crossed my legs and leaned back, playing with the strap of my bag. The counselor, a woman with kind eyes, asked why we were there. I spoke first, before Ethan could. I said we were there because my husband could not let go of one night out with my friends. I said he was punishing me for acting like a normal person, going to a bar and joking around. I explained how I was a good mother, that I worked, took care of Mara, and that I needed space to be myself without being watched. I said Ethan made everything about disrespect, when it was really about him being insecure. The counselor turned to Ethan and asked how he saw it. He described the bar incident, the lap, the jokes, like he had at his mother's house. But this time, he added the messages he had seen pop up on my screen from Kai when my phone was on the table. He did not have to show them. Just mentioning them made me feel exposed. He said he felt like I was living a separate life and mocking him in it. I rolled my eyes and told the counselor he was taking screenshots of everything, that he was building a case instead of trying to reconnect. I said it felt like he did not want to forgive, that he wanted to win. The counselor asked gently if I had messaged the man from the bar after that night. I said maybe a little, but only in a joking, playful way. Nothing serious. She asked if I would be okay with Ethan doing that with another woman. I answered that Ethan would never, so it was a dumb question. The counselor did not argue, but she did say something about trust being broken by more than just physical acts. She talked about emotional loyalty and public humiliation. She asked if I could understand why Ethan felt humiliated when videos of his wife saying she was basically single were being shared. I said he cared too much about what other people thought. I said if he was sure of me, he would not care. Ethan just listened. At one point, he said he did not want to make me into a villain, that he still cared about me as Mara's mother. But he also said he could not stay in a marriage where he was treated like a joke. The counselor asked if he wanted to work on forgiving me. He said he wanted boundaries and honesty first. I heard that word, boundaries, and felt like I was talking to a social media post, not a person. When the session ended, the counselor suggested we think about what we each wanted and maybe come back. In the hallway outside, I told Ethan she seemed biased. I said she kept looking at me like I was the problem. He said she had just asked questions. I told him if he went around telling people his version of the story, of course everyone would side with him. At the school playground later that week, I felt eyes on me. Maybe it was in my head, but I saw two other mothers talking quietly, and then glancing in my direction. Did they see some clip online? Did Helen say something? I could not know. Ethan arrived a few minutes later to pick up Mara for the evening. He greeted me politely, then knelt to Mara's level and reminded her of their plans at Grandma's house. Tara showed up unexpectedly, walking across the grass with her work bag still on her shoulder. She said Ethan had asked if she could help with extra babysitting, if anything changed soon. Hearing that phrase from her mouth made my heart jump. I pulled her aside and asked what he meant by that. She said I should probably ask him, but her face gave away that she knew more. I went home angry, not scared. Anger is easier. I called my mother and told her Ethan was trying to turn everyone against me. I said he was talking about things changing and getting people lined up for it. Dara said I needed to protect myself too. She told me if Ethan wanted to play serious, I should speak first to our friends and tell them he was abandoning his family because he could not handle a simple joke. She said image mattered, and I should not let him control the story. That night, Ethan came back with Mara. She ran into my arms, then went to her room to show me something she drew. Ethan stayed in the hallway, holding the strap of his bag. He said we needed to talk. I said we had just talked in counseling. He said this was different. We stood in the narrow space between the kitchen and the bedrooms. He looked very steady, not like a man in crisis, more like someone who had made a decision and accepted it. He said he was done arguing and defending his feelings. He said he had tried to explain, tried to fix things, and that now he was going to handle this properly. I laughed and asked what that meant. I said he loved big words now, boundaries, patterns, properly. I asked if he thought they made him sound strong. He said it was not about sounding strong. He said it was about acting in a way that protected Mara and himself. He said he could not stop me from living the way I wanted, but he did not have to share a life with me while I did it. He went into our bedroom, took his remaining clothes off the shared rack, and carried them into the guest room. He moved his shaving kit and his book to the small dresser there. It was so calm, so tidy, that it felt worse than if he had thrown things. He took his wedding ring off and set it on my dresser, not in a dramatic way, just like someone returning something they borrowed. I followed him, asking if he was separating from me, if he had decided that on his own. He said we were separated in every way that mattered already. He said this was just making the outside match the inside. I told him he had no right to rewrite our marriage as if I had never cared. He said he knew I cared in my own way, but that my way hurt him and would hurt Mara. Later, after he closed the guest room door, my phone buzzed. It was a message from him, sent even though we were only a few meters apart. He wrote that tomorrow evening he wanted to meet at a restaurant with both our families to discuss next steps for Mara and the house. He asked me to be there on time. I read the message twice. The formal wording made me smirk. I told myself it was his version of an olive branch. I imagined him standing up in front of everyone, finally admitting he took things too far, asking for another chance, promising to stop with the files and meetings. In my mind, that dinner would be where I won and proved that his little legal game was just a phase. The restaurant he picked was too bright and too quiet. Long table, cheap flowers in glass jars, my mother already waving like this was a birthday. I walked in late on purpose, in a dress that made their faces tighten. If he wanted a show, I would give one. Ethan stood when I arrived, but not to hug me. He just nodded. Helen sat beside him, hands folded. Mark was across from Tara. My mother was at my side, already whispering that I should not let him bully me. Mara was at the end between the grandmothers, swinging her feet. I started first. I said I hoped we could finally put the drama behind us and focus on being a family. I said I had made small mistakes, but that Ethan had turned them into a campaign. I used that word on purpose. I said he was gathering things to hurt me, not help us. He waited until I was done. Then he took a breath and said he wanted everyone to understand what he was doing and why. He talked about respect, about the videos, about the messages. He said he had not shared everything before to avoid embarrassing me, but that he needed clarity now. I laughed and said it was all about his pride. That was when a man I did not know stepped up to our table with an envelope and my name. Ethan said this was a divorce petition with temporary orders for money and a clear schedule for Mara. He said everything had been filed that morning.